Hi guys, welcome back to the Bold, Beautiful Borderline podcast. It's your host Sarah, and today is part 2 of last week's episode with Kate and Michelle. We're talking DBT skills and advice, and I can't wait for you to hear their insight, both as therapists and individuals who use DBT skills themselves. But before we get into it, I have a piece of fan mail that came after their previous episode, which is really sweet and fun. Love that you guys listened to their episode and enjoyed it. The fan mail says, this episode hit home so hard, enjoyed it immensely, and couldn't relate more to both guests. I have listened to every episode. That makes me just like so full of joy to hear someone say they've listened to every single episode of this podcast is quite the feat. There's over 250 episodes, so that's an investment and just so sweet. So thank you so much for listening to this episode, and let's get into Kate and Michelle. So I'd love to hear kind of like your favorite DBT skills and like how you teach them or use them. That would be really interesting to me.
Yeah, one that comes immediately to mind for me that I love is willingness. I think like what Kate and I have really tried to demonstrate back when we were leading DBT groups together, when we podcast and talk about DBT skills, is how the same skill can look differently for different people. And so the way willfulness looks for me might be different than how it looks for some other folks. But like willfulness for me is like, I just want things to go the way that I planned them. So if I have planned something a certain way and then something happens and it changes things, then I get, kind of frazzled and I just want to cling to how I believe things should be. And that's willfulness for me. I don't necessarily have a big emotional outburst. I, don't get like wildly dysregulated when I'm being willful, but I do get like really, you know, frustrated by things not working how I want them to, and I try to regain control. And so when I heard about willingness, I was like, I need a healthy dose of that in my life because I need to loosen up. I need to be more in the moment. I need to go with the flow more. Like these are all things that would really benefit me. And so I've gotten pretty good at being able to tune in like what willfulness feels like in my body and then turning the mind to willingness more. And that's been really transformative to just notice where I'm at and make an intentional effort to like more or less use my wise mind to get me to more of a willing place. So that's one I really like.
To harken back to what I was saying earlier, accumulating positive emotions. Oh, here you go. One tiny pet peeve is because I don't believe in positive or negative emotions, and it would be my understanding that DBT wouldn't either. So I hate the name of that skill. So I reframe it usually or rename it because it's still the right letters of accumulating positive experiences in the short term, because that feels like something that is aligned with how I think about the world. But that is, I genuinely believe that the authentic joy that I feel at tiny little shit is a not insignificant portion of why I am still around and alive. Like, just to name ones that have stood out to me recently, as I'm like, I think I'm abnormal and I'm okay with it. I got excited because I took an on-ramp I had never taken before. Because I, usually go there as a carpool, and so I don't usually get to take that. I'm like, oh, I've never been on this one before. And people are like, you're excited about an on-ramp. I'm like, I am. It's novel. Like, or I got out of my car at an appointment, and the car next to me was painted black, but it was a black that was full of itty bitty flecks of like rainbow in it. Like so when you moved, it like scintillated. And I spent a good 30 seconds just moving my head back and forth looking at the things on this person's car like some sort of parrot. But just so happy. I'm like, oh, I've never seen anything like this before, and it's shiny. Like being a very exuberant pro, I don't know, has done an amazing amount for me. The way I teach it, one of the things that I say about this is that life will take care of throwing difficult, unpleasant, nasty things onto the scales, right? You don't have to put anything over there. Life's gotcha. I'm like, on the other hand, we can add things to the positive side of the scales, and it's lovely if we can do things like I was so incredibly blessed and supported by my community and family and other things, I got to go to Costa Rica for 3 months after grad school. Just fucking amazing. That is a huge thing with a kerplonk, on the positive side of the scales, but that's so rare to be able to engage in something that's going to put such a big amount of something positive on the side of the scales all at once. But you can go tink, 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 tink. Like, if you put dozens of ittle bitty pieces over on there, it adds up, right, to being a similar amount of positivity and happiness and joy and whatever in your life, as if you went kerplunk, right, all at once. And so I'm a huge advocate for literally and figuratively stopping and smelling the fucking roses, right? Like, do it. It matters. Notice that it smells like spring outside and take a second to enjoy it. Do the tiny things, because tiny things, in my experience at least, are pretty much always accessible to me. I know that I am lucky in the fact that my depression rarely overwhelms that entirely. I can get pretty anhedonic, but I don't know, flowers are still flowers, and flowers are pretty and they make me happy. Maybe not enough to like change my whole fucking day in a moment, but it's a little thing to add into my experience that matters when we add them up over time. Yeah, that's one for me. Do you want to do another one, Michelle?
Yeah. Let's see. I, dialectical feelings about radical acceptance. Kate and I say all the time, it's the hardest DBT skill, but it's also, I think, one of the most impactful. And hearkening back to what we were discussing earlier, when Kate came to me during that time and said, I'm seeing this casual criticism with your husband, like, it took me a little bit to radically accept it. It took more than a little bit for me to accept that my ex was an alcoholic. Like, radical acceptance is incredibly painful when you're reaching it, but it is a life-changing DBT skill. And so when you can reach that place within yourself of radically accepting oftentimes things that you don't like and you really wish not happening, that opens you up to change your life. And I think Kate's talking about, like, DBT has this concept of a life worth living. And Kate's talking about one component of that, which I absolutely think is about finding those little things and being mindful. And all of that is a component of creating a life worth living. And also, like, when I have had major moments of radical acceptance in my life, it propels me closer on like a bigger scale to creating the life that I want for myself. Even when things are messy and really hard and I don't know what's coming next, which is like the spot that I'm in my life right now. Like, there's going to be a ton of changes over this next month of my life and all of that. Like, I wouldn't be here without radical acceptance getting me here. So I gotta mention it as one that I think is very important in healing.
How do we like to teach it, Michelle?
Kate and I will tell personal stories about radical acceptance. I also mentioned this earlier. Man, we've covered a lot of ground today on this episode, Sarah. I love it. Oftentimes, one of the radical acceptance stories that I talk about is when I had my hip injury while I was dancing. I had to radically accept that a dance career was not going to happen for me. And I struggled with that, of course, because I put so much time and effort into becoming a professional dancer. But because I radically accepted it, then I went on to college and, became a therapist and so on and so forth. So I'll tell a story from my life. Kate will tell a story from her life. And we think that that's so important with teaching the skill. Like, we start with those stories before we even like look at the handouts of like, what does DBT say this skill is? We're like, okay, we're going to talk about this term radical acceptance today. And now we're going to have a story time. Kate tells a story. I tell a story. Then we get into it.
It's funny also, Michelle, that when I talked about the short-term A, when I picked that first, I was like, if I don't pick radical acceptance right now, Michelle's going to get it.
I left self-soothing for you.
Oh, I know. That's what the next one was. That's going to come out of my mouth. But I'm like, oh man, if I don't do this one, she's going to do that one. Radical acceptance, just as a passing comment, also very important to me and in my life. Yeah, self-soothing with the five senses is absolutely one of my go-tos. If we're being honest, it's sometimes too much of one of my go-tos because I occasionally try and do it when it's not the appropriate skill and I'm actually too emotional for the moment, but I like it better than tip. So anyway, that's one of those times where it's like, are you using the right skill for the situation? No. When it is the right skill, I'm a big fan. Gosh, aw, I wonder, yeah, did I ever post that? I don't think I ever did, Michelle. I have to go do that in the Facebook group. One of the things when I was in DBT when I was 19, at the UW bookstore in Seattle, was checking out and I saw this itty bitty card, like reading card, but like literally maybe an inch and a half, 2 inches tall, like a tiny little thing. And it just has this little cutesy painting drawing thing of a very simple little like brontosaurus dinosaur who has a little bouquet of balloons in his mouth. And it just makes me happy. It just makes me happy to look at it. And I've carried that in my wallet for 23 years now, I guess. I still have it. It still lives in my wallet. It's my tiny, I wrote cheer up on the inside of it, and it's my tiny little visual self-soothing with the five senses thing. And yeah, I've had it longer than almost any possession in my entire life. That little thing has stuck with me. Self-soothing is a huge go-to. When this is admittedly more fun to do in in-person groups than on online groups. We still make do with it. We generally have people practice each of them in the group as a way of teaching it. So we have people go around and try the different things, and then we go around and talk about what the experience was and what they liked and which ones stood out to them the most. I'm a big fan of encouraging people to make self-soothing kits. I know it's not a whole kit, but honestly, my little cheer up dinosaur guy is kind of one of that for me because he's with me all the time. And other things like it's not something that goes in a kit, but like self-soothing with touch. I really like brushing the back of my fingers against my cheek gently, right? So things that I don't necessarily have to have in a self kit, but I have accessible with me all the time. Anything else about that one that stands out? Here you go. One of the other things that I say, because some people who've had abusive enough or difficult enough childhoods, etc., may not initially, I don't know, people or self worth issues. There might be a barrier to knowing how to self-soothe or what might count as self-soothing or feeling like you deserve self-soothing or something in there. So either for folks who had these sort of experiences in childhood, I suggest like maybe remembering what was soothing to you in childhood and trying to go in that direction. And if not, at least just, we get fair amounts of societal messaging and images and stuff like that. So just like, what do you understand children to like? Like, what are some things you think would soothe a child? Try that on yourself, like as a starting place for people who maybe feel really lost on what might work there. So,
Get a stuffed animal. I tell my
yeah.
clients to do that all the time.
Oh, I've had my teddy bear since I was born. Literally, I have a teddy that's as old as me, and I take him whenever I internationally travel, which is amazing because the older I get, I mean, he's big enough that he doesn't go he doesn't get packed. I carry him. And I will say it's amazing because the older I am, the weirder that is societally. And people are so nice to me. They were like okay with me when I was like as a teenager, like that's where you're carrying around your teddy bear still. But at 42, I think people think I'm not altogether about myself. And it's fantastic. I will take it forever. They like shake my teddy bear's hands and ask to see it, ask for his passport, and like they treat me like a child essentially. And I'm like, oh man, this makes security and shit so much less stressful when everyone's essentially holding my hand and talking to my teddy bear. I will take it. So anyway, weird little suggestion. If you have a teddy bear that you've had for a long time, start carrying it openly with you when you travel, especially internationally. It works. It's helpful. And they make great neck pillows.
I have to say, my husband has a lot of stuffed animals, and I at first really struggled with it. Like, I was like, I can't relate to this. I don't understand it. It feels so childlike to me. That feels embarrassing. And I still have moments of that because he has one of those like corner macrame
Yeah.
hanging things with
Yeah.
all his stuffed animals. And we have it in our guest bedroom, and it's like a boundary for me that that's not going in the main bedroom. But I have really had to practice some radical acceptance that that's like a big part of how he self-soothes and is like because his parents removed all of his from him in
Mm.
childhood, right? Which is like a pretty common experience for a lot of, I think millennials especially. It's like parents were like, okay, you're too old for your blankie now. Like, we're getting rid of it or whatever. And so him integrating that back in. But I have severe anxiety because he has one stuffed animal named Radish that he cannot live without, cannot sleep without. And anytime I'm like, oh my God, the dog's grabbed that. Like, let me just make sure I get it back right now. Like, if something happens to this stuffed animal, like, life is not going to be the same, right? Like, there's going to be a lot of distress. So, anyways, um, one of the things with this podcast is a lot of listeners, my listener base tends to be like younger, right? A lot of people just kind of coming into their diagnosis. And I wonder for you guys, like, what suggestions do you have for someone who's just starting out in their DBT journey or like maybe is just entering a program?
Go slow. There's a lot of DBT skills, and we see it a lot with the people who come to our podcast. They are just wanting to eat up all the DBT. They've bought books and now they're listening to a podcast, and they're maybe in a group, and they are just they get excited about it, which is amazing, but then they try to learn as much as they can, as quickly as they can. And this may sound kind of weird coming from somebody who led DBT groups for so many years, where the model of leading a DBT group is that every week you teach a new skill. But it's so fast paced to even try to learn one new skill a week. Like, you first have to learn what the skill is, then you have to actually practice it and implement it into your real life. And it can just be way too much to be trying to learn at least one skill a week. It's no. I really think it overwhelms people. I also tell people a lot that because there are so many skills, find a couple that you really like 1 to 3 skills that just really speak to you. If you like, I'm going to pick 3 random skills out of thin air. If you like wise mind, check the facts, and dear man, great. Leave the rest. Like, that's fine. Like, you first have to learn what all the skills are to then be able to pick and choose which ones really fit for you. But once you find ones you love, then that's the goal. It's not about trying to use all of the skills or learn them all as fast as possible. I've seen that really backfire for people.
Hilariously, I was like, I'll say this. And then you said it. I was like, okay, now if she's saying that, I'll say this other thing. And then you said, I'm like, okay, I've got with this last one. And then you said, like, God damn it, Michelle. Sorry, all of what Michelle said, for sure, as a starting place. I guess similar to, but maybe it has a slight tweak on the idea of what you were saying with the like pick, 2 or 3 that really work for you. I think sometimes it can be tempting to kind of throw the baby out with the proverbial bathwater of like, because there's so many, either that I don't understand at first pass or I don't like at all, or other things like just fuck DBT. And so similar, again, just slightly different flavor of just like use what works and throw away the rest, man. Like, it's okay. You don't have to do every DBT skill under God, forever. Like, that's all right. What works for you? What helps your life be more regulated, etc. Other than the things that Michelle said, I guess this is in a sense particular to a couple of different skills, but by and large, I think that sometimes we can have this idea of certain skills, especially things like maybe ride the wave or wise mind or some other things that they radical acceptance, that they look more calm, like that they look somehow inherently like calm and regulated, and it's going to be okay and maybe pleasant. And I'm like, oh no. The first time I did ride the wave successfully after sort of coming back to DBT as an adult a little bit later, I wept so hard I vomited several times. Like, it was gross and horrible. Right? But it worked, and it still taught me in my body that I could make it through that moment, right, without having to engage in self-harm. So I think just generally maybe look at it less as I will stop having these emotions immediately, or it will solve all my problems to do this thing, but it changes your relationship to those emotions and like how you move through them some of the time, as opposed to just turning them off. Like I have a lot of clients who have said that they feel a lot more comfortable with and like utilize wise mind a lot more once they're told that wise mind doesn't have to look calm. I'm like, you're bringing your emotion mind in. If your emotion mind is I don't know, grieving incredibly hard or infuriated or other things, you might still be having an emotional response that's like, expression, but that doesn't, you're just not letting it lead the charge, right? Like you're just not letting it make the decisions. But it doesn't mean, I went into my wise mind and my emotions evaporated and I'm just thinking about what my emotional state was to bring it into the hap. I'm like, that's exactly what you mean. Yeah, I think it's important to recognize that it's not a panacea. It's not necessarily just going to poof you out of your difficult emotional experience. And it's still worth it to help ease your relationship with and your transition through, etc. Emotions.
What are your thoughts when someone is struggling with practicing a skill or implementing it and they start to have a lot of self-shame? What would you say to someone?
Well, that failure is part and parcel to the whole human gig. There's no, that's not true because I try and avoid hyperbole. The vast majority of the time, if you're starting something new, you're going to suck at it. In fact, when I tell people to start practicing mindfulness, I explicitly say, go out and practice mindfulness badly. Go be bad at it, please, because you're going to be bad at it. That's how it's gonna work, right? So I mostly try to just incredibly normalize the fact that learning any new skill is difficult, and implementing skills that are meant to be utilized in no small part when you're at your most emotional, which is also when you're at your least intelligent, that's going to have a learning curve, right? That has to be difficult because of how human beings are wired. Like it's not a personal failing to struggle with these things. It is how human brains and bodies work. And so, also, my favorite line in the whole thing is don't judge your judging, right? Right. And so also just trying to, sometimes invite people, I know it's like nesting skills, but a little bit of like check the facts ish kind of thing of like, well, all right, you're saying all these things about yourself. Like, is that grounded in truth or is that grounded in like a judgmental self-reflection? But yeah, by and large, my big push is just to normalize the shit out of the fact that of course you're going to struggle. Of course you're not going to take in, I don't even know how many fucking skills in like 9 weeks. That is not going to happen, right? Of course, when you're trying to deal with something that comes, you're supposed to utilize when you're overwrought, you're gonna fail more often than you succeed for a while. Like, so I just try and normalize the shit out of it. I don't know. Anything different, Michelle?
I agree with all of that. And I also tell people that it is a huge win to even think about DBT. Like if you have it where you're just going through your daily life, nothing that bad or stressful is going on, and you're just randomly thinking about like the skills, that's great. If you are in a really stressful, challenging moment and you're like, I probably should you stop here, but then maybe some willfulness comes in and you don't, or whatever. That's great too. Like you thought about it. You remembered that stop was even a skill in a really hard moment. That's great. Or people will tell us, we hear this all the time, after the fact, after a stressful thing has happened, after they've responded in the way that they normally would, and then they're feeling shame about it because they didn't use skills. Then after the fact, they'll be like, I wish I had used opposite action or something like that. And we're like, great. You're thinking about it. You are rewinding in your mind to go back to that moment and recognizing a skill that could have been helpful for you. So even if you didn't think about it at the time and you didn't use it at the time, your brain is doing this important preparation to set you up for actually working up to the point of doing a skill. So just having DBT on the brain really matters, I believe. And so when people are feeling shame about like, I'm not using my skills, I'm like, you're probably doing a lot better than you think you are.
Yeah, that's beautiful. We don't have a ton of time, so I'm just wondering, like rapid fire, what final wrap up do you want people to know about DBT?
Oh man. Uh, a lot of it may at first blush, I think, look so, excuse me, so straightforward or so simplistic or so, common sense that I think it can bring up some sort of willfulness. Like if it's this simple, I would have figured it out by now, so it can't possibly work. And so recognizing that it is a way to I think take some things maybe that people do naturally. A lot of DBT takes, like, maybe you do turn to reading or something like that, but instead of doing it sort of out of habit and without thinking about it, you could now engage with it as an intentional skill to intentionally make a difference in your life. And so I would invite people to, I suppose, keep an open mind. Wow, that's a generic sounding phrase, right? But just because it looks too simple to matter, don't give it a chance anyway. And also, I don't know. I think that, here you go, Michelle. We'll see how well I know you. I'm betting on you saying this part, so I'm going to stick to that part. And just, I would encourage people again to just live with their humanity. Like, for instance, I mentioned having a recent relapse with self-harm, but that doesn't mean I don't practice my skills, right? So not to take any time that you step outside of what you're attempting to do skillfully, to not be like, well, I guess I failed. Like, I guess I don't have any skills. I guess I'm right. And just be like, okay, humans be human. We fail at shit with some regularity. And to like not get I don't know, contested or like abandon sort of the skills because you didn't do it in that moment. But again, to just sit with your humanity and how that intersects with the skills would probably be my thing. Right, Michelle?
We'll see if I say the thing Kate thought I would say. DBT is for everybody. We didn't mention this earlier, but Kate and I also co-authored a book called DBT for Everyone, because that's what we truly believe. We know that a lot of your listeners, Sarah, on this podcast are either already diagnosed with BPD or suspect they might be. And so it's probably pretty easy for people in your life to look at you and be like, well, because you self-harm or because you're diagnosed with BPD, then you're the one who needs DBT. You're the one with the problems, kind of an idea. But these skills are beneficial for everybody. And so just to recognize that when you're approaching DBT, I mean, hopefully you can find other people in your life who are willing to approach it with you, and also learn and practice these skills, not just with like the goal of like fixing you, but so that they can actually benefit from using them themselves, because DBT has been really helpful for me. And, you know, as we named early on in this episode, like Kate and I come from entirely different backgrounds, very different mental health journeys, but it's helpful for me. It's helpful for Kate. It's helpful for everybody. So, yeah, give it a shot.
I love it. Where can people find you guys? Follow along to your podcast, get your book. What's the deal?
So, yeah, as you named earlier, Sarah, our podcast is on any podcast platform, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, just searching for DBT and Me. Our book can be ordered on Amazon. So if you just search for DBT for Everyone, you'll find the book there. It's as an audiobook, it's an ebook, paperback. And then we also have our Facebook community. So if you search for DBT and Me on Facebook, you can join our Facebook group there. I don't know if I'm leaving anything out, Kate.
You are an entire podcast.
Oh, yes.
We also have another podcast that we record together that's called The Couch and the Chair, stories from two therapists in therapy. The real point of that is to humanize therapists and show that we too have trouble with our ducks. And so each time we do it, we have a mental health topic. And usually Michelle and I talk about how that topic has shown up in our lives. If it's something that, I know, we'll take self-harm, for instance, that I have struggled with that Michelle hasn't, we'll get a guest on who's a therapist who has struggled with that issue. And we spend the first half of the podcast talking about how that's impacted us personally in our journey with it. And the second half being like, these are things we say to clients who struggle with this stuff. So it's meant to be sort of both sides of the therapy room, from being clients on the couch and therapists in the chair. So, and that can be found all the same places as the DBT and Me one.
I love it. Well, I can't wait for my listeners to get connected with y'all and listen to your pods, get your book, just join your Facebook group, whatever that looks like. But guys, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom and your stories. I just so appreciate it. And yeah, I just have so much love for you guys. And it's so cool we live in the same state. Most of the time I'm speaking to people that are out of state. So I love that.
Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been a delight. It's fun to be on this side of the podcast for the first time. So yeah, thank you so much. It's exciting.
Hi, listeners. Thank you for tuning in to the Bold, Beautiful Borderline podcast. I hope you enjoyed the episode today. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your content. That is super helpful for me. It helps us find additional folks who want to listen to the show, want to feel seen, family members who want to learn, and partners who want to understand. If you want to follow along to more than just the podcast, find us on Instagram at Bold Beautiful Borderline, find me at Borderline from Hell, or head over to boldbeautifulborderline.com where there's information, resources, a place to leave a voicemail to be heard on the podcast, which I love, and just general content. All of that information can be found in the show notes. And if you want to get exclusive content, which is bonus episodes, journal prompts, worksheets, all sorts of extra stuff, sometimes videos of me with my hair very crazy with kind of impulsive borderline rants, head over to Patreon and consider becoming a member. That is super helpful with creating content that allows me to destigmatize BPD and all of the other wild mental health struggles that we discuss on the podcast. A huge thanks to everyone who joins on the podcast to share their story and just generally helps keep this thing alive. Especially my friend Corey Evans from the Evergreen Band. He produced and created the music that is the intro and outro for this show, as well as the cover art that was created by my husband, Talon Abbott. Their information is found in the show notes. All of the information discussed in the podcast is purely personal experience. This is not medical recommendations. This is not therapy recommendations. There's no producer for this show. It's all me.